So here we are, 2023, course season, first week, River Wye. We're back, and although today we're not targeting anything specific other than big fish. Well, we like big fish, and it's going to be a long video, this one, so I hope you're comfortable, you got a drink. I'm going to try and chat to this one. Anyway, so let's get started. Here we are at the River Wye. The water level is low. It's got quite a green tinge to it. I was here the first day a week ago, and I tried to do all sorts of clever photography underwater, and all I ended up with a few minnows swimming through the green soup. But we'll try again today, and we'll get round to the cameras I'm using later. Right, the objective to try and pick out some barbel, or more likely chub, in areas that are not normally accessible, but at the moment with the river so low and with the use of waders, we're going to be able to come in from the water side back into the bank that way, get in. We could also target some of the fast water areas where there's a lot of ranunculus streamer weed, which thankfully has come back after the devastation of 2 years ago, where the pollution created scum that wiped it out. Anyway, there's plenty of weed in there now, which is good for the wildlife, for fish, and for fishing, and the bugs. Anyway, so that's the objective. We're going to target them. And to do that, we've got two rods set up. The first one is one of my favourites. It's 9 foot, it's a John Wilson, made by Masterline. It's a very old rod. It's an Avon quiver, except I've got the float section, top section on today. And I've matched that with a TF gear centre pin, which unfortunately is no longer available. Stupid, it's one of the best cheap reels on the market that ever was. Anyway, that is loaded with, I'm now using 10 pound Maxima monofilament because it floats well. That's what I found, and that's what I use. But that's the main line. But on the bottom of the main line, I have got it started off as 1/2 metre. It's now about 400 mil. So I keep changing hooks. Of airflow, sight free, and that's 10 pound. Fluorocarbon. And that's attached with a 3-turn water knot, and above that I've got a couple of SGs, SGs, to get the float sunk. The float I'm using today, which I will slide down, which I like to be able to slide easily, because as I said, there's a lot of weed in here. So you want your float to be able to slide if it gets caught in the weed when you've got a big fish on. And that is a midi, I think, 4 gram. Anyway, I've got 2 SGs on there, which is enough to cock it, but not sink it too low. These fish are not shy, and they will drag that under straight away. Also, this river is absolutely packed full of silverfish, and they will be chewing away at your big bait as soon as it hits the water, and the float will be bobbling around all over the place. So if the float is set too light, it'll keep going under when the little ones are there, and you don't want it going under until something at least 2 to 3 pound has got hold of it, because on the bottom end, the sharp end, is a size 4.0 Drennan wide gape barbel, 4.0. Right, that's the float rod, which is now all tangled up. I'll sort that out later. And that will be for trotting down the glides, like the one behind me, and until the water gets just that little bit too rapid. Or if we're trying to get right in under the bank, and then we will switch to another Rovex John Wilson, but this is the Barbel quiver. It comes with a selection of quiver tips, I've gone for the one that's easiest to see against the green background for you. Not for me, for you. But then I won't be doing it visually because I'll be holding the rod, I'll be feeling the bites as well as seeing them. Right, this is an 11 foot. It needs to be powerful because some of the water I'll be fishing with this is fast, deep water, gullies, deep pools, places like that where the water's rushing in. Now, the barbel in here, a double figure. You get one of those in knee-deep water that's really pushing, you're going to need one hell of a rod to get them out. Now, fortunately here, when you're wading, you can move. You can follow the fish. It's like salmon fishing. You don't hook the fish and try and land it where you stood if you sat on the bank. That's the point. When you're wading, you can move down and bring it into the shallows or calmer water where you could deal with it more efficiently and effectively. Anyway, 11 foot barbel rod. On here I've got an Abu Garcia. Can't read it. It's a 301 FR. Free runner, I suppose that means. Anyway, it is a bait runner. I won't be using the bait runner tactic today because I'll be holding the rod. It's a small reel, but it's good enough for here. I like it because it's light, and if you're going to be holding this for 2 hours at a time out there in the river, you don't want something heavy. The rod's heavy enough as it is. I really ought to get a modern one. Anyway, I'm prattling on now. Anyway, 11 foot. On there I've got 15 pound Maxima, and again half a metre of the 10 pound fluorocarbon, to a size 4. Because I'm only light ledgering or touch ledgering, where the three turn water knot between the main line and the fluorocarbon is, I've got just 2 SG. That's all I've got. I could take those off and slip on other weights. In fact, I've got a whole pocket full here, and they go from teeny weeny little things to 1 ounce flat weight bombs, penny weight, all sorts, and they're all in this jacket. So that's the light ledger gear, and we'll be using that, casting sideways in under the banks, letting it trundle down between the stream of weed in the gravel channels, and in the fast water especially. The method of fishing this is you cast a bait. Hopefully there's enough weight to hold bottom, just. When you want it to move on down, you just lift the rod tip, it disturbs the weight, and it just trundles on down a bit. It then settles again. You may get a bite as it's moving. You could get a fish take it after it stops for a few moments. So you leave it there for a minute, 2 minutes, then let it go on down. Anyway, I'll demonstrate that later. So that's the equipment. Landing net. Very small pan landing net. A lot of the chub here, even the 5 pound fish, it's just as easy to gently get hold of them while they're still in the water. You can net them if you want, but if you're wading, the fish don't even come out of the water, because you unhook them using your forceps, because you can kneel down in shallower water. You know, it's hands-on stuff, this. Okay, so that's the equipment. Camera-wise, I'll be using this one, and a third one for some of the deeper pools. I'll sneak up and I'll put this modified bank stick with camera, waterproof, down off the bank, screw it in, and at the top I've got this little thing, and that is facing the same way as the camera, so I know when the camera's facing the way I want it to, and I can screw that down into the riverbed once I've turned it on, which I forgot after. and hopefully that will give us some underwater shots. There's one pool up the top near what they call the Carey Islands, top of the Carey Stream, and that is one pool there where I'll get the camera in, and hopefully it'll be clear enough to be able to see some fish in that pool. Anyway, so that's the kit, equipment. Bait. Today we're using good old trusty sweet corn. And as I'm wading, I will be emptying this tin, once I've taken all the juice out, into the top pocket on this side of my waistcoat. Sweet corn. I could put anything at 8 to 10 grains of that on a size 4. Great. Now, the other baits will be luncheon meat and bacon grill. Now, I've spoken about these in the past. The luncheon meat I use in calmer waters or for trotting because it's a nice oily bait and it gives off quite a scent trail. You'll note the way I extract it. And the reason for that is I can literally fill my pocket with core samples like that. When I want a hook bait, I just break off a piece and the size 4 will go through there beautifully. Right? Also, if you're hungry, you can eat it. I don't like this stuff. And that goes in the other pocket. And that's luncheon meat, but it's quite soft. Yeah? I'll take a piece like that. You can see it's quite soft and it breaks up, which makes it ideal for feeding, free feeding. Yeah? It's okay on the hook, but you also small chub down there just that piece. Anyway, I digress. Bacon grill. Why the bacon grill? Now, bacon grill, same as the luncheon meat. Take your core sample, break off your piece, your hook bait like that. Now you look at that. Oh, much firmer. Yeah. Now, once you've got your size 4 in there, you could cast that and recover it and recast it 4 or 5 times, even in the rapids. Yeah, in amongst the weed. It doesn't come off. It's much firmer. There's only an inch of water. Right. So those are the 2 meat baits. And all I do is I take my cores like this and I fill my waistcoat pocket with those. Bacon grill and luncheon meat all mixed together. And then you can feed that, get the fish interested as you like. Now, of course, once you've taken all the cores out, you end up with all this lot. Now, what I do with that is I just chop that up with the apple core into little bits. And they go in another pocket, 3 pockets full of bait. And you can chuck that in as ground bait, particle bait, whatever you want to call it, freebies, yeah, just to get the fish interested. The problem with this river, it is so full of fish. You could throw in 3 tins before you even started fishing, and you will not feed off a shoulder chub. They'll still be there, they'll still be taking your hook bait. Anyway, that's enough about that. I think we've covered everything. Apart from, I mentioned I was wading. I'm wading because I know this river. I know this section of the river intimately. I've waded it hundreds of times. If you decide to have a go at this and you're going to be wading, be very careful or very mindful. Water is not your friend. If you're wading a venue for the first time and you can't see the bottom clearly, you should use a wading stick, but let's face it, come on, that's going to be a real pain. So, always try and make sure there's someone else around, maybe other fishermen on the bank, so if you have a problem, at least they're there to call for assistance if they can't help you themselves. But basically, don't go over knee deep. And in really fast water, don't even go knee deep, because that can knock you down. Anyway, that's the end of the boring bit. I think I've told you everything I wanted to tell you. Small landing net, unless you haven't seen my other videos. Got a little clippy thing on it and a magnet, so that hooks on the back of my waistcoat, back of the waistcoat, and when I want it I just reach behind me, pull it off, and I can let go of this in the water because it's on the lanyard. Alright? That's it. Let's go. Now, those of you who are familiar with my antics here on the Aronston Beat, you'll know that this is one of my favourite swims. It's a narrow section between two of the three islands, and as you can see, it's where the faster water goes down and cuts in under that far bank. However, over the years and with recent flood this winter, you can see that willow tree has come lower and lower, which means getting a bait into that pool behind that willow is getting harder and harder. I could trot the floats through underneath it, and that I would normally do if the sun wasn't beating down on the back of my neck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross over the river, and I'm actually going to set up my gear on that far side and fish from immediately above the pool down in under the bank, and that's where I'm going to be putting one of the cameras, in that pool. So wish me luck. Right, what I think I'll do here is I'm going to use the float rod, but with the bait static on the bottom, just lying on the bottom. Strep pegging, I think they call it. That's if I haven't spooked everything by jumping around here now. Okay, right, sweet corn or luncheon meat? Let's be bold. Let's go for luncheon meat, shall we? Likely to get a barbel that way, I reckon. Right, now we're going to drop this in, and if the float keeps moving around the pool, we know it's not deep enough, don't we? You know, I'm literally just lowering that down into the pool. And it's away already. Now something grabbed that, but it can't have been anything that big because it didn't actually get pork in its mouth. So we could have a lot of small fish here, and if that's the case, we are definitely going to need a lot of free baits in there to get rid of them. A bit early for silverfish. Could be small chub though, but that also meant that we weren't on the bottom. So we'll slide the float up 8 inches, it's 200 millimeters to you youngsters, and we'll drop that in. Now that is disappearing off down the flow, and I don't want that. I want it here in the back eddy. And that's away again. Stonking away that was. And we've hooked whatever it was, and it looks like a chub. Not a big one, but it's a fish. So here we are, one chub. Or so I say, one more chub. Well, we haven't managed to pick anything up in the weed yet, so as we're on our way down through the rapidly shallows, it's always worth looking out for overhanging trees and branches where you've got shadow, shade, and a fairly deep gully. Now, I haven't tried fishing in here before. This is called the Carey Stream. I know there are trout in there. We're just going to try flicking a bait into there and letting that trundle down. It's quite a good demonstration of how it, it helps if you don't let go of the line. Now, I'm just feeding this by hand. Now those shot are just holding bottom. Not there. I'm just going to control this with picked up a leaf. Now, where that goes down into that shade could very easily hold the fish. There's one. Oh, suitable. Yes, and a fish. Oh, pulling well. He's pulling quite well. Oh. You wouldn't have thought, would you, eh? Just in that shade, in under that tree. And here he is, Mr. Chub. Oh, come on. Now, you might think, why has he got that clutch set so light? Well, I'll tell you why, because if it was a barbel, we'd be 40 odd yards downriver by now. Now, you see, because I've got waders on, I can just kneel down in the water here. In fact, I might even net this one. There we are. Oof. This one. The hook is just in the top of the mouth there. Lifts out very easily with the forceps. We can let go of the we clamp the forceps on the hook and we just drop that in the river. We don't have to worry about the net because that's on a lanyard. This means we now have both hands free to admire our fish. Another fat chub. And okay. Straight back to his little hole. Now the chances are there'll be a few more of those going off down there under those willows. And we're now going to have a quick go with the float down to this faster moving water. See if there's anything at home in the weed. But if we have no luck with the float gear, we'll then go and get the light ledger and we'll roll a piece of luncheon meat, or bacon grill I should say, down through this lot. See how we get on with that. Just wading into position now. So I know that there's a weed bed here where we can stand quite safely. We've got this fast ripple on the right, we've got the deeper pushing through on the left. But straight in front of me now, it looks a bit flatter. That's because there's streamer weed there, and I'll be able to stand in or on it and then cast down through the fast water. We'll give that a go. Right, well we've had our fun with the float gear, and we were going to go back out with the light ledger, but we've got some more rods turned up on the river on the far bank, so we won't be wading out and upsetting them. So we're going to stay on this bank, we're going to fish down into the hole, and we're going to start off with just 2 SGs, and then we can add weight if we need it, right? Let's go. Okay, so the tactics are light ledgering with just 2 SGs, size 4, nice piece of luncheon meat, and we're just going to cast that out into the flow and let it bounce down the bottom of the river on the bed and see what we pick up. Now, there's a lot of small stuff in here. We're likely to get all sorts of little knocks and nibbles. We're not worried about that, because we'll know when we get a decent bite, because it'll actually pull the rod tip down and round. Okay, so here goes. Simple flick out into the middle and just let that trundle down on the bottom. And we know it's on the bottom because we can feel it pulling. We hold it back with our finger and feel it pulling. If it comes to rest, we let it rest. Like that. Now let's stop rolling. So we just put the bail on over it. And hold on to that. And we'll see what happens. Another good thing with this is you can start off fishing with, oh, there's a small little knocks, that small stuff just playing with it. See those little nibbly bites? Now, there's two things that can happen. One is they keep doing that until they've robbed the bait, or it'll suddenly go like that and you've got a fish on. Right, well that was fun. We had a go at various different bits of water. Used the float rod and the light ledger gear. Interestingly, with the water level being quite low and it being very bright, it was interesting to note that the fish were not out in the open. They weren't even in amongst the weed in the clear gravel down the open sort of river. Every single fish we found was in fact in the shadows, in under the banks, under the trees, and also, more importantly, they were all in the moving water. Hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. I don't know what my next video is going to be. I'm going to have to think of something weird, I think. Unless, of course, the mullet come back up. 30 miles from the sea, I know, but a couple of years ago when it got really hot, we had mullet just below those rapids. And if they turn up again, I will definitely be having a go for them. Probably fly fishing with a nymph. So if you're into nymphs, watch this space. So if you want to leave a comment, good, I like comments, good or bad comments. You know, we all learn, we've all got to learn. And anyway, yeah, so thanks for watching. Sorry it's been a long one, but I had lots to show you. Cheers then, sideline.